I'm Erica Lukes, host of UFO Classified. For me, life isn't simply black and white. Life is full of many unknowns. It is my goal to travel the world and to work with the world's leading experts in the hopes of making groundbreaking discoveries. Join me on UFO Classified Friday nights at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, only on KCOR.
UFO Classified. UFO Classified. No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Good evening and welcome to UFO Classified. I am happy to be here. It is an absolutely gorgeous day in Salt Lake City, and it's been a wonderful week. Never a dull moment in my world of trying to research things and really dig into what's taking place behind the scenes with regard to UFOs and the latest disclosures, quote unquote, whatever they are, attempts to steer the narrative. We know how that goes. But I really feel that good headway is being made. You know that I have been working on research at Skinwalker Ranch and the surrounding area for quite some time. And again, we've been getting more pieces to the puzzle here that we can look at and try to figure out what exactly is going on this property that we very definitely have seen injuries and interests in medical studies and watching and observing behaviors and all sorts of things. So it's never a dull moment in that world. But I want to, first of all, just say thank you to all of my loyal friends, my supporters. You all are the reason I say this all the time, but it's true. You're the reason I'm here. I believe that we deserve the truth. And as we know, the truth is very hard to find in a subject where sometimes we have to deal with people and their belief systems and delusional thinking. And then we've got people that are definitely trying to push people in a direction because it takes all the attention off of the direction that is the most important. And so I appreciate all of you for being logical and rational and taking a journey with me, a journey of discovery. It's an important thing. As I weave my way through all of this, I find myself becoming more akin to some of the people who have skeptical points of view about the topic. And I'm not saying that I don't think that there is something going on that deserves study. Of course it does. But I think that unfortunately what we've seen over the decades are people that really have done things that aren't necessarily in our best interests. And so it's important to talk to people that have a skeptical opinion of this because they're trying to look at the most common logical thing to explain a UFO sighting and rule it out, which we should. And I really appreciate that about my guest this evening. Mick West has been very vocal on Skinwalker Ranch, some of the pages as of late and different things. And it'll be interesting. This is going to be a great conversation tonight. He is the co-founder and former technical director of Neversoft Entertainment and helped create the billion-dollar franchise, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. After leaving Neversoft, he spent time coding, writing, and learning to fly a small plane. This eventually led him into his interest of the chemtrails conspiracy theory and the creation of the site contrailscience.com. He now runs metabunk.org, a forum about polite debunking about theories of 9/11 and the flat earth conspiracy theory, which I definitely want to talk a little bit about. That's a good one. His first book, Escaping the Rabbit Hole, draws upon his debunking experience and research to try to provide a set of tools and information for people so they can actually kind of weave their way through the waters and try to get out of the conspiracy mindset. He started a podcast in 2019, Tales from the Rabbit Hole. They've been very, very interesting. I've been listening to them. He interviews conspiracy culture guests and people in the UFO field. I watched recently his interview second to last interview with Tim McMillan. That is an interview I would definitely suggest watching. And let me know your thoughts and comments about that. But Mick, welcome here. Like I said, I've been watching you, and I really enjoy watching your interactions. I think you provide you make people think, and that is a really important thing when we're dealing with this.
Oh, thank you, and thank you for that introduction, and I'm very glad to be here. Yeah, and I think trying to make people think is kind of the key thing. A lot of people, instead of having a conversation with people, they just kind of throw information at people and expect them to either believe it or not believe it. But really, we can all figure things out for ourselves, and so trying to prompt people to think about things is a good move.
It absolutely is, especially, we're so easily influenced. And I think, unfortunately, the more we sit behind a computer and the more we're looking down at our phones, the more susceptible we are to really being influenced and not thinking freely, And I think the UFO culture is one of those places where, you see ideas inserted, and then you see people run with these ideas. And a particular fascination of mine is looking back at the history of the subject when the ETH was inserted into the narrative, and then also watching how some of these political and religious groups really in the late part of the 40s and 50s wanted to have their say. And then we get, the tall Aryans, the tall Nordics, excuse me, that are the benevolent space brothers. And then you've got the ugly little grays who are abducting people. And it's just, the whole thing has been so fascinating to me. But yeah, isn't it interesting?
It is, and I think that the thing about UFOs and the whole alien narrative is that it is a fascinating thing in itself, and it's just something that the topic itself is. Everyone likes things like science fiction and fantasy and the TV shows about that type of thing. I think it really just speaks to something that people just find really fascinating, and that's one of the reasons it's so compelling. And you get this kind of crossover between fiction and reality when you have shows like Ancient Aliens that are kind of blending this kind of a fantastical narrative with some factual stuff in there as well. And it's very easy to kind of spin things up from fairly banal facts into something that sounds really, really interesting.
Absolutely. And I have to say, because in reading your bio, in the bio it mentions that when you were a child that you had an interest in all of this, and that you believed that you had an intuitive ability, that as you began going through a process that you, well, tell us about that. I'm just going to let you explain all of that.
Yeah, well, I was very interested in UFOs when I was young, and I read books about them, and I was also interested in ghosts, and I kind of found the whole subject a bit frightening, the idea that there was these strange aliens coming down and kind of abducting people from their bedrooms, because I was reading these stories about this type of thing happening, and when I was just a kid, I was like 10 years old or whatever, this was really scary to me. Because I thought, maybe it would happen to me. So I'd be lying in my bedroom thinking aliens were going to come in or ghosts were going to come in. But kind of what happened over time was that I kind of realized that these fears were not playing out. Obviously, aliens never came and abducted me, that I remember anyway. And I kind of realized that a lot of the stories I had been reading weren't really based on reality. They were based either on tall tales or they were based on people's memories. And so I kind of became more interested then in kind of the actual science behind things. If aliens were coming here, how long would it take them to get here? How far away is the nearest star? How likely is it for life to exist? And I would investigate things like that, and also, the other topics I'm interested in, the strange things. Like I was originally interested in things like spontaneous human combustion. It was a fascinating topic to me as a child. Like how could a human body actually burn like a candle? And just this kind of fascination with kind of oddball topics has carried over into my adult life. And after I kind of retired from the games industry and was able to pursue other interests, I just started looking into things like this more and more. Started with the conspiracy theories, chemtrails, 9/11, flat Earth, that type of thing, and UFOs just kind of came along naturally.
I can see why that would, actually. This definitely a community full of, I mean, there are lots of interesting beliefs in the community, and it's just been a very interesting process for me to watch. When I first started all of this, publicly, I was drinking the Kool-Aid, so to speak, and I thought that we were all in this to really get to the bottom of things, and I learned that absolutely wasn't the case. And I also sat back and kind of watched the way people were inserting things, especially in MUFON, because there was such a push to, you went to different chapter meetings and they're inserting, religious ideas and political ideas into what's supposed to be a scientific study. And I just think, what point don't we understand how to be objective in this?
Yeah. Well, I think everybody brings their own ideas about the world to these things. So when you start out with a group of people, it's quite hard to keep everybody on the same page. You could say we're all going to be purely scientific about this, but if somebody has an idea that there's a certain thing going on in the world, then that is going to influence their decisions. And I've seen this in conspiracy theory groups like the 9/11 people. There's a bunch of people who, have various different ideas about what happened on 9/11, but they kind of coalesced around this 9/11 truth movement. But after a while, after a movement kind of matures, it tends to fracture naturally, just because people can't just keep doing the same thing over and over again, and they want to grow. And so they want to kind of develop, they want to figure things out for one thing, and they also want to move on with their lives. So they end up naturally going in different directions. And I think you'll see factions within any community, and you see factions within the UFO community.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for that. Was very eloquently put. I want to ask you a little bit, because I love the conspiracy theory angle on things. And so what, if you had to pick your favorite conspiracy theory, what would it be? Chemtrails?
I think it would be chemtrails, just because it's the one I'm most familiar with, so it's the one I can talk about most. But in a way, that's kind of fading away. It's kind of ossified into this more older conspiracy theory, and there isn't that many people talking about it in any new way. So really, the interesting thing now, it isn't really a conspiracy theory, but it is in a way, which is the UFO hypothesis. And there's a conspiracy theory there, in that there's this theory that the US government is covering up the truth about UFOs. And so you could say that is a conspiracy theory. There's something going on, and that people are conspiring to hide it from us. So that's been very interesting. It's partly interesting to me because it's a fun thing to investigate. You get these videos and photos and eyewitness accounts, and you get to do things like trigonometry and do the math on how big things are and how far away they are, and you can analyze the photographs and even analyze audio sometimes. But it's a fun thing to look at, and obviously there's lots of unanswered questions there, and when you can actually figure something out, it's a fun thing to do. And I enjoy actually finding out the root cause behind things and trying to talk to people about it.
And I do too. I think it's just immensely fascinating. So, with this new disclosure movement, what are your thoughts about the way, since the December 17th article, 2017, what, after that happened, I mean, it just seemed like the floodgates opened, and you have this very fanatical side of people that are saying this is it. It's finally here. After thousands of years, we've got disclosure. And it's like, I was a little bit, I was hopeful at first. And then I started to again, sit back and look at the people involved and look at the way things were shaping up. And I just saw a lot of red flags in what was taking place.
Right. Yeah. I think it's really overblown, the significance of what's actually happening, and people are trying to make something out of something that isn't there. The big thing that's being disclosed are these 3 videos of UFOs, And a big deal was made when they first came out 2 years ago from the To the Stars Academy. And a big deal was made again, perhaps even a bigger deal this time, because it's an official release of unidentified flying objects, which is what they actually are. They are actually objects which are unidentified, which appear to be flying. But that's, I think, all that they are. The Navy isn't saying these are some kind of weird craft with weird physics. They're saying these are things that are flying that we haven't identified. So it could be something that's moving fairly slow. It could be just some kind of plane. The Navy, unfortunately, isn't going to tell you exactly what they are if they've figured it out in a way that uses some kind of technology like radar or something that's covered by the operational secrecy requirements, which is going to be a huge problem with all this stuff, is that we get these little drip drabs coming out that make their way through the wall of secrecy. But there's a huge amount of stuff that's going on behind that. Like, I think the Navy probably has a very good idea of what type of objects these things are, even if they haven't given 100% identification. So what's being disclosed, from an official level, really isn't anything particularly interesting. It's 3 videos of little blobs in the distance, all 3 of which I think have fairly reasonable explanations, which I've gone into in great depth in my videos. And there isn't much beyond that. There's some little promises of things, like the To the Stars Academy has a CRADA, like research development agreement to do with something, but nothing's really actually happening there. So I think people are getting their hopes up because it sounds initially like an amazing thing, and you think back to like the Leslie Keane article back from I think December 2017, which like trumpeting it as like the second coming. Really, it's like this amazing thing. Like finally we have this official acknowledgement that UFOs are real, but UFOs have always been real. The Navy and the Air Force have always seen unidentified flying objects that they don't know exactly what they are, and they could be just something like balloons or planes in the distance. And then there are accounts of things which are inexplicable in terms of physics and whatnot, but could perhaps be explained in terms of things like loss of situational awareness. People will think that's a terrible explanation, but the Navy no doubt looks into these things. And if they have discovered that there's something amazing going on, they have not yet disclosed it, and they don't seem like they're going to.
It is interesting, the way all of this rolled out, because the videos in question were released without authorization to begin with. And tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting thing, because there's an email chain, supposedly, of Luis Elizondo discussing things with various people about releasing these videos. One of the videos was already out there, the FLIR video from the Nimitz, that had been kind of leaked onto the internet many years before. But the other two, the gimbal and the Go Fast videos are new. And there is this email trail of kind of requests about them being declassified, being released, and he fills in this form, this 1910 form, saying that they're going to be used for study of things, and he lists on the form like balloons and unmanned aerial systems and things like that. So it doesn't actually seem that even then they were saying that they were amazing things. But then later the Navy comes out and says they were not officially released. So what it seems to me like is that Luis Elizondo has he has contacts because he used to work in the Department of Defense. And so he had all these contacts with people, and he knew these videos existed, and so he tried to get them out of the system. And the way he did it perhaps wasn't the correct way, and didn't tick all the boxes that he needed to tick. So it wasn't actually a proper release, but maybe he thought it was. Maybe he thought it was an official release, and regardless, he got them out there, and he had some kind of form filled out saying it was official, and then they built their entire case around those things. So I don't think there's anything super suspicious about that. I think he just didn't go through the correct channels. It's not a big deal, really, because they released them eventually anyway, and they don't seem to think that they are anything earth-shattering. But I don't think there's much much mystery there, really.
And I have to ask you, because it's this whole thing, you see the same people promoting all of this that promoted Skinwalker Ranch, and the same players involved, over the decades, and the reporter that gets all these secret scoops and is out there, and it's been fascinating to me. And my husband is a former Bass employee who spent 6 years at Skinwalker Ranch and almost 10 working for Robert Bigelow. And he mentioned to me a conversation that he had with Colm Kelleher, where Colm told him that right after the incident on the Nimitz, that Colm was on the ship. And there are reports of people coming in and sweeping up the data and taking it away. And so, you have to wonder, at what point were they involved, and how does that play into the OSAP contract, which, in my opinion, when I read that, really has nothing to do with UFOs. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I think the people swooping in and taking things from the ship, I struggle to see that really being like them studying UFOs. I think that they were trying to figure out what this incident was, but I think it's, personally, I feel that it was probably more likely to be them trying to figure out what went wrong with the radar, because they had all these anomalous radar returns, and so they needed to figure out what was going on. I mean, maybe it was a real thing, but there was certainly a huge amount of suspicion at the time from the captain and other people on the boat that it was just the radar was playing up, and these other events that had happened may have just been coincidental. But I think there's a number of possibilities. Obviously, like it could be like there was some secret operation going on, like maybe they were testing a new drone, maybe there was like some kind of engagement. They just detected a Chinese sub or something like that, and the Chinese sub had released a drone. So there's all these possibilities. But I always like to try to take all the different possibilities and arrange them into a list, and not just say like this is my favorite possibility. So I would stick something like the radar playing up as being the top thing, and then some secret operation being the next thing, and perhaps being a suspected incursion as being the next thing, and then so on and so on. And usually we get things that are more interesting, like aliens or advanced technology, towards the bottom of the list. But I would never take anything off the list.
Well, and it's interesting. When we get back from break, I wanted to talk a little bit about, when I was state director for MUFON for a while, and I had a really interesting case, and my opinions on that case and some of the things that I observed were very fascinating, and I'll want to tell you about that and get your feedback. Yeah. But I definitely believe that, in my opinion, the more I'm looking, the more I think this is probably, we were testing something and somebody released a video and they're trying to cover it up. But that's my thought. I'm Erica Lukes here with Mick West. We're going to take a break and we will be back.
Stand by. This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes. Erica Lukes. The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified. UFO Classified with Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Hello, KCOR listeners. Lorian Fenton here from the Fenton Files to tell you how to watch UFOCon 2020, which was held right before the virus scare in Shelter-in-Place. It was a conference like no other, so don't miss out on the specially priced on-demand replay of what is already the most talked about conference of 2020. Visit UFOCon2020.com. That's UFOCon2020.com.
Now, broadcasting in digital HD radio.
In the shadows, a voice cries out. Evidence that you're not alone.
You said my name. What is your name?
Proof that the living and the dead coexist. Or do they? Every Wednesday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, join writer, producer, and paranormal investigator Greg Bakken on Ghost Box Radio as he explores, interviews, and investigates evidence alongside some of the best in the paranormal community and beyond.
6 people killed.
Ghost Box Radio. Wednesday nights exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Because the dead don't sleep. Ghost Box Radio.
Are you ready to go?
It's showtime!
Here we go, world. You're listening to the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Broadcasting from the heart of Las Vegas, Nevada.
Their base is so large it has to draw most of its power from the nearby nuclear fusion plant.
The future of radio is here and now.
Are you ready? Ready to go inside the Matrix? Inside the Matrix.
You see, whoever controls technology controls the world.
Then tune in Sundays at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, as your host, Jimmy Brent, takes you deep inside the holographic Matrix.
Carefully designed to stimulate the mind.
Come explore a world of topics from technology, archaeology, spirituality, and so much more. Inside the Matrix will liberate you from the manipulated, parasitic entities of consciousness.
You guys ready for this?
It's time to claim your true natures as creative, divine beings inside the Matrix. Hosted by Jimmy Brent.
Who are we talking about?
Jimmy Brent. Live Sundays at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Inside the Matrix. Investigating and analyzing the experience of life. Life.
You're listening to UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts!
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to UFO Classified. Again, I want to just thank all of my listeners. This is a learning process for all of us, and I definitely, when I started my show a few years back, my thoughts and ideas and feelings were definitely different than they are now. And all of you who've been listening and following my work have watched this discovery process, and I think it's a process that we all hopefully go through. I mean, some people might not, because they just want to believe what they're going to believe, and they're not going to look at facts. But hey, that's one of those things. So I love this topic, and I love looking at the history of things and how everything has been steered, and then the intelligence community getting in here, and then it's just fascinating. But I want to thank you for your support first and foremost. I am here with Mick West, who, the second I announced, my show, I had a friend of mine who, he was strongly protested me having him on the show. And he said that he wouldn't, listen. And he is, he's been involved in studying UFOs for a long time. And I understand that, when you have people that are skeptical, it feels like an affront to what you've done. And I understand that. And I used to feel that way. And I remember, this is funny, I was at a MUFON conference a few years back, and I saw Robert Schaefer there. And I just, he's have you ever met Robert?
I have, yes.
I mean, he was so funny because he just sits in the corner, and there was something about him. I just wanted to go up and talk to him. And so we spent a great night talking. And then at different conferences, I learned that he was an opera singer. And so every time I'd see Robert, it's like, sing opera for me. He has an absolutely beautiful voice, and I actually got him to sing on one of my radio shows. But it was fascinating to hear why he got involved in this, and to watch his process as well, and things. And I think there is a value to having people with differing opinions that are having a productive dialogue about things that's important, especially in this topic. So thank you for being here, and thank you for offering all of your ideas. I think they're needed. So when we left off, we were talking a little bit about some of the ideas and thoughts on your list about if you're looking at something, you're going to go through A, B, C, and D to make sure you're ruling out the most plausible thing before you go to the most fantastic idea or claim. And that's go ahead.
I wouldn't say I would rule things out. I think that's a mistake that a lot of people make. There was a case 3 years ago, the Chilean Navy UFO case, and this was a video that they had, a black and white video, mostly black and white, and it was taken by a Navy helicopter of a strange craft in the distance that looked like a couple of blobs, and then it left this strange trail which looked like it was a hot trail, and the Chilean Navy. They have a thing in Chile that investigates. I can't remember what the name is, but it's quite a big organization that investigates UFO sightings. And they looked at it for 2 years, and they gradually basically ruled out one thing after another. And so they looked at all these possibilities, and they ruled out. They said, "Is it a plane?" No, it's not a plane. Is it is it a meteorite? No, it's not a meteorite. Is it a bird? No, it's not a bird. And then eventually they ruled everything out. And they announced it as a genuine unidentified flying object. And they released the video. Leslie Keane released it via the New York Times. And then me and a bunch of other people looked at this video and said, that looks a bit like a plane. And then we investigated a bit more and dug up some old radar tracks of planes and figured out which plane it was, and figured out it was actually a plane, and we proved it was a plane. So the problem was that this organization that was investigating UFOs had eliminated the possibility. So once they'd eliminated it, they stopped looking at it. They hadn't even considered it. They hadn't considered that they might have made some mistake in their analysis, and so they never went back to it. They just kept on looking at different things and eliminating all those as well, whereas they've just skipped over the thing that they've looked at. So I think it's important to make a list of the possible explanations and never take anything off it. So even if you think you've eliminated something, it could be you've made a terrible mistake, or it could be you've got information that's wrong. What you do instead is keep things on the list, but reorder the list. So the more plausible, based on your current information, one bubbles to the top, and the less plausible ones bubble to the bottom. But they're always still there, so if you get some new information, they can bubble to the top too.
And I like that. I really, really like that. And so I want to ask you and get your opinion on maybe this was a test, a weapons test, or and I really think the more I look into this, that is where I'm leaning right now, and I will reorder my list if that seems to not fit the narrative, like you say. But there have been different articles that have come out about what the U.S. Navy has been developing and the advances in naval combat with electronic warfare systems, drones, all of these things. And what do you know about that, or what are your feelings on that idea?
Well, I think when you look at putting an explanation to things, you have to remember you're looking at a lot of different things that you're trying to explain, and you might not be able to explain them all with one explanation. Like if the explanation is that they were doing a test of radar spoofing technology, where they were trying to fool the radar into thinking there were things when there weren't things, then that only explains the radar returns. If the test is something to do with a drone, like a new type of drone, that might explain some of the sightings, but it's not going to explain the radar returns that dropped from 80,000 feet to 500 feet in a fraction of a second, because regardless of your drone technology, that's going to be impossible. And it doesn't really explain the more boring radar returns. Like the initial radar returns that they had were of slow-moving targets, like around 100 knots, which is not much different to wind speed, really. And they were just drifting south, or moving very slowly south, and then they eventually disappeared off the bottom of the radar, and they didn't see them again. And when they flew a plane out to see if they could see something there, they didn't see anything in that location. And that just sounds to me like some kind of weather glitch in the radar. But is that explained by radar countermeasures? Is it explained by a drone test? Is it explained by a foreign power doing things? There's so much variety in this Nimitz case. You've got Fravor's account of what happened. Commander Fravor flies out there and he looks down and he sees the water boiling. He doesn't just see this tic-tac, he sees this disturbance in the water, which is a weird thing in itself. And then he sees a little tic-tac type thing, like flying around down there. And then he flies down, and it flies up, and he flies around, and it flies around, and he flies towards it, and it flies away over his shoulder. You know, what was that about? That's not explained by some kind of radar spoofing. So, you know, you can have these things on the list, but you don't need just one list here. You probably need multiple lists. That you can cross-reference them. You can cross-reference these lists. They may be related, but there's so many different things going on in that incident. It's very, I think it's a mistake to try to nail one explanation down for all of it.
Right, and again, I like that. Thank you for grounding me in that regard. Because it's like you get, you get focused on certain things, and right now with what I've learned about the ranch and different things, my focus is on testing and thinking, and I really feel that the people involved who have created this UFO narrative over the decades have not really been, that hasn't been the gist of what they've been doing. And so that's, to me, when I'm looking at all of this, that's where my focus is, because some of the same people are involved in again, steering the narrative. And so I appreciate your comments on that.
Well, I think testing is a great possible explanation for a large number of UFO-type sightings and mysterious events, simply because you've got this wall of secrecy that I talked about before. If the Navy or the Air Force or the military or anybody is developing some kind of new flying craft, it's going to be a secret. They're not going to be demoing something out where the Chinese could study it and then copy it. They want to keep it as secret as possible. So it's very possible, and obviously it's happened in the past with things like the U-2, where there were lots of sightings of high altitude strange objects, and it turned out to be the U-2. So it certainly is a potential explanation for a number of things, not just UFOs as well. I mean, there's like strange lights in the desert or whatnot, or strange sounds and things like that. That could be some kind of military test that somebody is doing, and they're not going to tell you, and we'll probably never know.
Right. It's interesting because I was listening, to Tim McMillan's interview that you did with him, and he was talking about the Pentagon and their statements, and saying that there is something, he didn't specify what, that would prohibit the DoD from lying to the American people and promoting propaganda.
Yeah. Well, that may or may not be true. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a military lawyer, and I don't think he really is to that extent either. And it's one of those things that you would have to be behind the curtain to know what the actual interpretation of the law is, because this is the type of thing I think that isn't tried in public court. Like, it's something a military secret. You're not going to have a public hearing. No one had public hearings on whether the Manhattan Project would be classified. Tim would say, obviously, that was many years ago and things are different now. But I don't know. What they released, I don't think seems to indicate that they're covering anything up. I don't think that they are lying in their release, and I don't think they have any obligation to tell us that they know what it is. So I don't think, even if they do know what it is, then that's not a lie to say that. But if they were testing something and they knew that, and they said it's unidentified, that then I guess would be a lie, and under Tim's theory, that would be illegal. But I would suspect that there is a degree of leeway for misstatements and falsehoods in the government to cover up secrets like that. But like I said, I don't really know. I'm not really a state secrets lawyer.
Right. And I think that, I would say, of course, that would be the case, that if a video, let's just throw this out there. If a video was released and without authorization, and this was actually something that was being tested, I mean, you're kind of between a rock and a hard place. What are you going to do? Because you can't blow it to, you've got to make up a cover story. And I think in the interest of maybe national security, that you might have to come up with a cover story. I don't know. Has our government ever done that?
You would think that cover stories would be a reasonable, thing that would be allowed, and it doesn't seem like a terrible thing. There are these laws that you're not allowed to have propaganda against the American people, but having a cover story, I don't really think is propaganda. Because propaganda is where you're trying to change people's opinions about things. A cover story is just simply a false story, essentially a white lie, where you're saying, oh, this was I don't know, whatever it was, like a weather balloon, when it was actually this secret anti-gravity craft that you don't want the Chinese to know about. Is this propaganda that you're calling something a weather balloon when it's actually anti-gravity? No, it's just it's a cover story. You're covering something up. You're not trying to change the minds of the American people.
Well, and we have example time after time after time of our government doing that, for various reasons. National security is a prime example, and we've also seen historically how the UFO topic has been used as a cover story to hide testing, or to as a little espionage game. I mean, so you see the use of the UFO topic being used, and I think that that's an important thing that I have tried to drive home on some of my recent shows, because people assume, like now with this new, To the Stars Academy, and okay, the Navy's saying this or the Pentagon is saying that, this is the first time it's ever happened. And like you mentioned in the last segment, no, this has been happening. It happens every decade. Somebody is coming out and saying, oh, we, A, B, C, and D. And I don't, people have to understand that there are definitely games afoot in that regard.
Yeah, the games. I personally don't pay much attention to that. I think there's a degree of kind of intrigue and drama in the UFO community, which perhaps in some degrees is warranted, because there obviously are things that have gone on historically where there's been government cover-ups and UFO related things. Obviously, the classic example is the Roswell incident with the weather balloon being the nuclear bomb detector thing, which they were covering up. And I'm sure there's probably other instances as well, but it's not something I pay much attention to, because for me the interesting thing is trying to figure out what the actual sightings are. Maybe the government's covering something up, but can we figure that out by looking at them? Can we figure out from these videos that there's actually something going on there? The Nimitz thing, is there actually something interesting that needs explaining? And yeah, there is. I mean, there's the video itself is pretty boring. It's just a dot in the distance, which could be a plane or something. The radar stuff is interesting, but it could be glitches. It could be glitches. It's certainly a plausible explanation. But then you've got Commander Fravor giving this account, and what's that about? If that was some kind of highly maneuverable drone, then yeah, that's something that government is covering up. But how can we prove that actually is what he thought it was, that it was actually this fast-moving drone? Is that actually something that needs explaining? And I'm not entirely sure on that. I'm not entirely sure it moved quite as fast as he described it, or moved quite as strangely as he said. But it's hard to say. It's interesting, though.
It is really interesting, and I want to just share. We've got a few minutes before break, and I want to just share an experience I had, because I think for me this all ties in. When I was state director for MUFON, we had a mass daytime sighting, and this took place over the Salt Lake Valley, and I got wind of it because I had a reporter call me from Fox News here locally, and she was just saying, okay, everything's lighting up social media. People are sending pictures of these metallic spherical objects that are hovering in place, and this lasted. I mean, it couple hours where people were out there photographing this, and these objects, they were at a standstill. All of them would move together. There were reports of 5 to 7 of them. They were over, by some witness accounts, over the NSA. Air traffic seemed to, by witness accounts, would stopped while this was taking place, and there were reports of military aircraft that appeared to be pursuing or monitoring what was taking place, and then some of them moved in a direction, and then one moved off at speeds that we would say aren't physically possible. And then the next day they were seen in Colorado, and a reporter by the name of Matt Renew, actually you can find his interview on YouTube, October 2nd, mass sighting. And he did a great deal of research on these objects as well, and got the same types of testimony from law enforcement people who saw this and all sorts of things. And I did, obviously you've got a daytime sighting, this where you've got a lot of photographic evidence, a lot of statements from people, and so I took that and ran with it and grabbed it and tried to contact as many witnesses as I could, and I requested radar data, did a FOIA request, and it was very interesting to me because there was no transponder data on the objects. It was reported to be over some of the most top secret, or not top secret, but classified airspace in the world with the NSA, and we've got Dugway Proving Ground, all these Utah Test and Training Range, all these things, but it was really, really unusual. And so as I began to take this to MUFON, and MUFON, Colorado especially, I said, okay, here, this is, if you want a great UFO sighting, you've got a daytime sighting. These objects are behaving in unusual ways. They're maneuvering, in ways that are not possible, humanly possible, perhaps. At the time, I thought that. And I was shot down from the top down, and the powers that be wrote this off as a Google loon balloon. And I did more digging, and I found out that they were not, Google loon balloons weren't even in the United States at this period of time, and that they wouldn't be visible to the naked eye because they fly too high. Mm-hmm. They don't test, at that time they weren't testing that many of them. And so I it's like, okay, this isn't possible. But the more I look back at this, the more I have to wonder if that wasn't some sort of test flight of something. And you get these spherical metallic spheres that appear, and this isn't this is something that has happened more than once when you look at things, and then the cases are either debunked, or there's something that goes on with this. And so I'm not sure how special, I hate to say this, I know I'm going to get thrown under the bus for this, but I'm not sure how special the Nimitz sightings are in relation to some of the other sightings that we've had and investigated.
Yeah, well, they certainly got a lot of attention, and I think it's the combination of different data sources, I think, which is what gets people with all the different witnesses talking about the radar, and it being a military thing as well. It's coming from within the military, and that really kind of gets people going, because it seems much more official if you have military release of stuff, and you also have these people who worked on the Nimitz giving these accounts. If you just got people who are just driving their car down the road, seeing lights in the sky, that's perhaps not as compelling as someone actually on a Navy ship seeing lights in the sky.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is fascinating. The whole thing is very intriguing. But, I know that we've got a listener in chat who has been asking a number of questions, and he wanted me to ask you, it's Andy, and he wanted me to ask you if you had talked to any of the witnesses.
Yeah, I've talked to Gary Voorhis, who was, I believe, the technician on the Princeton. He's like the guy who was responsible for maintaining things, and he gave me his account of what he saw. And I've talked to various other people online, like Kevin Day, who was the radar operator. I've just exchanged a few chats in one of the groups, and one of the other ones, Mike P.J. Hughes, also on Facebook. So I've had some contact with them. The big one obviously was my podcast interview with Gary. I haven't been able to talk to any of the pilots, which I think would be the most interesting thing. I'd love to talk to Freipo and the three other people who were there that day in planes flying around seeing this Tic Tac, because I think there's kind of an information deficit there. I mean, it sounds like he's giving this detailed account, but really it would be good if he drew a diagram of what he saw. And it's just something that has always bothered me, is that these witnesses, they just give they tell stories. It's like they're sitting around having a drink around the fire, and hey, one day I saw this UFO. It was flying around in circles. Why don't they nail it down? Why don't we get some actual numbers as to exactly what angle it was at, and how long did it take to move around this circle, and can you draw a plan view and a side view and a top-down view and of what you think actually happened, and then can we get the other people who were there to correlate that? So I'd love to actually talk to more people who were there, especially people who are eyewitnesses of the actual supposed craft that were seen.
And that's great. That's I think Andy's concern was that witnesses aren't being people aren't talking to the witnesses, and you have very clearly, and you've made every attempt to do that, and I think it would be interesting to see if other people want to talk to you, and that's the real test. Are people willing to talk to somebody who might raise some questions about things? And I'd
love to.
Yeah, that would be really, really cool. Absolutely. And so I love all of this. I love hearing your perspective. And I want to say it's people have kind of, people that believe in all of this have tried to, I think, demonize you. And I just love the way you let it roll, and you just keep asking questions, and you make people think. And like I mentioned before, that's really critical. And I appreciate that. We should all think about things that we're being presented with.
Yeah, well, I don't take it personally.
Can you teach me some of that? Maybe you can give me some counseling sessions. I don't know. I'm telling you, I've definitely toughened up a lot in this community, because I've gone through a lot. Everybody goes through things, and you have your online haters and trolls and different things. But it's never a dull moment. So you can teach me in more ways than one, I think, in that regard. So thank you very, very much. Is there a place that people can go to find you?
They can find me on Twitter at Mick West. It's probably the easiest way.
Okay, and I will provide links. I'm Erica Lukes. We will be right back.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at ufoclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.
The disc landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico. The rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazil was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to the second half of UFO Classified. I'm happy to be here with my friends. When I get into chat, it's like I feel like I'm at home. I want to thank all of you for your support. And Northern UFOs, Mario, you are the bomb. You have always been right there for me to help me get things onto YouTube and move the message forward. And I love you guys. That's all I'm going to say. So I am here tonight with Mick West, who, people who believe in certain things are maybe not taken with Mick at the moment, but Mick is providing us, good learning. He's providing us with tools to learn about things, how to assess things logically. I know that there are, or I believe, let's talk about belief systems, who am I kidding? But I have experienced things in my life that I cannot explain. And that is why I'm here tonight. That's the journey that I have been on to try to maybe rationalize things, to find answers. And it has been just a really trippy journey for me. And the more I learn about things, the more I step back and look at things critically, but I still have a sense of wonder, and there are things I can't explain. Mick West is with me tonight. He's co-founder and former technical director of Neversoft Entertainment, which is really, really cool. Mick, I can't believe you've accomplished what you've accomplished.
Well, I was always kind of a computer game nerd as a kid, so for me it was a very natural thing to go into video games.
And did you meet Tony Hawk?
I did, yes. Well, a few times.
I'm a little jealous about that.
I actually met him again just a few months ago in Mammoth Lakes here in California. There was a film festival because they released a documentary about the making of Tony Hawk.
That is so. It is, and I grew up, well, I'm not going to give my age away or anything, but I had a skateboard. It was quite the debacle, actually, really, but I thought I was cool, and that was that whole time frame when skateboarding was just taking off, and that must have been really interesting to meet him. I bet he's a very, very cool guy.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah, he still is.
Wow. So, and you're working on, we were talking about the Nimitz, and you've been delving into some of these mysteries, flat earth, 9/11 conspiracies, and all of that. And now you're looking at what took place on the Nimitz and some of these sightings, and you've done a series of videos giving the world your thoughts on what took place. And I want to, let's talk about that and tell us what you're mentioning on these videos, because it's very cool.
Well, kind of a preface to that, like you said, people have this bad reaction to me sometimes, and I kind of understand that. I understand why people don't like what I'm doing. I think a lot of people feel very, very strongly about this, especially people who have had some kind of experience, like yourself, where you've either seen something or you've encountered something that you think falls under this umbrella of UFO type things. And when I come along and I seem to be poo-pooing these things and saying that they all have trivial explanations. Excuse me. But just because I examine one video, or I examine 3 videos, and I find, excuse me, just a quick drink of water here. Just because I give an explanation for these 3 videos, it doesn't mean anything at all about your personal experience. Whoever this person is who has a bad idea about me, I'm not saying that because the gimbal is not a rotating flying saucer, that means that all UFOs are false. Not at all. All I'm doing is I'm looking at this one case, these individual cases, and seeing if there's an explanation for those. So try to, if I could ask people out there listening, don't think that I'm trying to attack your entire beliefs about these things. There's lots of things that are not explained. There's lots of sightings of objects that are not explained that I don't have an explanation for. I don't even really have excellent explanations for all of these things. But I am able to look at the videos and see where other people have made claims about these videos, or there are things in the videos that look like they are certain things, and then analyze those claims or those appearances and see if there's an explanation for that. So that is what I try to do with each of these 3 videos.
And that is wonderful. And I want to say that there's Andy's been in the chat room and he's been asking questions, and I encouraged him to call in because I think it's important that he asks you the questions. And so, Andy, thank you for calling in, first of all. And I know you have some questions for our guest tonight, so fire away.
Hi there.
How are you?
I'm fine. I'm calling from Germany, so excuse me if my English is not that good as you expect, maybe. I appreciate very much to be in your show. Mick, I have studied thoroughly these videos and also all the witnesses, you know, and for me it seems that, you know, humans, they're not good testimonies, not good devices for measuring something. That's true. But in this case, you have highly trained professionals, you know, and a lot of people, tons of people, dozens of people that testimonies this event, and on the Nimitz and the Roosevelt, you know. You surely know the testimony from Lieutenant Graves. You know, this is very interesting because he is describing, for example, the gimbal video as not only one object but a whole fleet. You know, and he knows the guys. What do you think about? Because I think one have to respect, you know, these highly trained professionals. Yeah. You know, what do you think about it?
But the thing is, like, highly trained professionals do occasionally make mistakes from time to time. It's not like they're immune to making mistakes. There was an Iranian airliner with a commercial airliner with like 200 people on board that was mistakenly shot down by a U.S. Navy destroyer in the Persian Gulf like a couple of decades ago. And those were highly trained professionals making a very important decision. Okay. And they made the wrong decision. So people do make mistakes.
Okay, that's correct. I agree with you that people make mistakes. But for example, in the Roosevelt event, this was for 2 months, you know, that they saw it for many weeks. And also in the Nimitz for 2 weeks.
What did they actually see, though? What were they actually seeing? If you look at what Graves' account is, his personal account of what he saw, not what other people said he saw, is that he saw lights in the distance. He saw things that were like little, you know, twinkling lights or something, or white dots. He didn't see anything close up. He didn't have any encounters. He has a few stories that other people told him of things that they've seen. But, you know, at that point, we're getting into the second-hand stories. There's very, very few very interesting accounts of these sightings. And you can go back to the Nimitz, you see people talking about, you know, they'd go up on the deck and they'd use the big eyes, these binoculars, to look at things. Right. And again, they're just seeing little white dots in the distance. There isn't very much good eyewitness, eyes-on accounts of these flying craft.
Okay, but what do you say about the? I think what is the name? Kevin Day. You know, he was not the only guy to see it. This anomalies in the on the radar.
No, Kevin Day. So he's the kind of the main guy as the radar operator. But I've talked with him on Facebook, and he admits he doesn't know 100% that they weren't some kind of anomaly, and he's there's the one case where something dropped very rapidly from high up to low down, and he said there is a possibility that was some radar glitch, and he would like to see the original radar tapes so that he could prove it. I mean, he probably thinks that it's not. He kind of tends towards the more exciting hypothesis, but he's not. I think he probably saw what he says he saw. He saw these things moving around on the radar. But I don't think he's lying about it or mistaken about his recollection. I think perhaps where he's mistaken is saying that it's impossible that it was some kind of radar error. Because even though he's a great radar operator, he's not the guy who designs and builds the radar. So there may be capabilities that he wasn't aware of, or problems with it that he wasn't aware of, and he's open to that possibility. He actually told me that he thinks there is a possibility that it wasn't that the contacts were not continuous. When something appeared to move very fast from one spot to another, he said that it's possible that they were two different contacts. So. I don't think people are lying usually, and I think they're usually telling what they think they saw in terms of visually and whatnot. But it doesn't mean that it necessarily is something incredibly amazing, because there's still explanations for these things that are possible. And people like to say there's so many people, but then if you actually get into all the different stories that people say, they don't exactly all line up. They don't all cross over in the exact same way. You've got different sets of recollections of what happened on the radar, and what happened on the radar isn't what happened in the video, and what happened on the video isn't what David Fravor saw. So you've got all these different things, but people are saying, "Oh, look, you've got all these people saying the same thing," but they're not. They're all saying different things.
Okay, but I think that is normal, because testimonies, they are not accurate. That
Sure.
I think this is normal. This is a normal thing. But the sum of the events, radar. You have not only David Fravor, but you have also the young pilot on the backseaters, and 4 pilots that didn't come forward yet. But I think it's my personal opinion, we will see more stuff in the years to come.
Oh, yeah,
from this event.
From
these two
to have
events.
it cleared up, one way or the other. I mean, it'd be really interesting if it was something, an exceptional technology. I mean, what Fravor described, if it is exactly as he described it, and not just simply a mistaken perception on his part, that would be amazing. If either we had a craft like that, or someone else had a craft like that, because what people are describing is, in a way, a new type of physics, and it would just be an incredible thing for that to come to be true. So, I'd love it to be true. I'm not just pouring cold water on it because I like boring things. I like interesting things, like anybody does, but I also like analyzing things, and I like boiling it down and trying to figure out what exactly is going on. And when I've boiled these things down, there's certainly unanswered questions, but I don't think there's really strong evidence of something really interesting.
And it's interesting. And Andy, I'm so glad that you called in. And I know it's almost 2:30 in the morning in Germany, so you are awesome to call in and to be listening to the show, to get into chat. It's really cool to have new listeners here from Germany. I was over there a few months ago, and I love it over there. I can't wait to get back. So thank you for calling in, and make sure, try to message me on Facebook, and we will communicate. And thank you for asking questions. I think we all have a lot of questions about this. And Mick, thank you for answering and giving your candid thoughts on all of this. It is, like I said, this is a discovery process for all of us, and it's nice to be able to have a constructive dialogue and air our differing opinions and try to work through things. That's what it's all about. So thank you, Andy.
Okay, thank you very much.
Absolutely. Make sure you definitely contact me on Facebook, and we will be in touch. So thank you.
Okay, thanks.
All right. So thank you, Mick, for answering those questions. And I know that, a lot of people, a lot of people have been following this, especially from the New York Times, the bombshell that took place there. And when you have the Navy coming out and saying certain things, there are a lot of things that have not taken place before, even though we can look back historically and say, things have decade after decade, we've heard differing stories, but there are some unusual things about all of this. And so I really Really appreciate you taking time to answer that, quite the questions from Andy. And so, with regard to all of this, what are your thoughts on disinformation? And could this be another disinformation campaign? I know we've touched on that a little teeny bit, in the previous segments. But what are your thoughts on that?
I don't think so. I don't think that this is being used as some kind of distraction or something like that. I mean, I think, like we discussed earlier, it is possible that it's some kind of military test that is being covered up with a cover story. But disinformation, like some kind of way of manipulating the public to do something, I don't really see that. When you look at things like the statement that the Navy released when they did their official release of these videos, it's pretty banal. And if you kind of look beneath the surface of it, and what are the people who are behind this, and what are they thinking? Why did they do this? To me, it just reads like a bunch of people who were tired of getting endless Freedom of Information Act requests for the videos, and they finally just said, "Oh, well, why don't we just do an official release, and then they'll nip that in the bud." And we don't know what they are anyway, and they're already out there, so let's just put them out there. So it doesn't seem like there's any big plan by the military or the government to do anything with this information, from my perspective. Then you got like To the Stars Academy. Is that some kind of government front to soft disclose alien contact or something? I don't really see that either. I mean, I said, like, the To the Stars Academy seems like this very, comical and inept organization from my perspective. Like, they do things like their history show, especially, was it Discovery? I can't remember. And it's just this ridiculous, sensational TV. And but someone responded to that. I was basically criticizing them. Someone responded to that by saying, well, wouldn't the government's plan be to have some kind of ridiculous organization headed by a rock star releasing things on edutainment TV as the softest way possible of getting the information out there?
Oh, that's not.
Yeah, which doesn't seem very likely to me. It seems pretty ridiculous. I think Tom DeLonge is a true believer, and he's a little bit kooky, but he's also a very driven man and very talented. So he's got his money and he's got his people, and he put them together, and he created this organization, and got Lou Elizondo in there, and he's just powering forward. And the people in it, they seem to believe. I've spoken with Chris Mellon on Twitter, and it seems like he's really into it. But he's not talking that much, because I think he's got some secrecy things with the show and whatnot. But they all seem a strange combination of true believers and kind of flim-flam artists. Mm-hmm. Like Elizondo, I suspect he believes that there's stuff out there, but he's also kind of, I don't know, he seems a bit kind of glib as he comes across on TV. And he seems like he's promoting the position rather than being honestly investigating what's actually going on. You've got these supposed analyses on the To the Stars Academy website that are really terrible, and a lot of them were debunked years ago, and yet they don't take them down. It's like they're not really doing an honest investigation if they ignore things. It's not just like, I'm an independent investigator, you should look at what I'm doing. These are things that have been pointed out by numerous different people. Like the Go Fast video, that they still describe the Go Fast video as an object that's going fast and is low to the water, and they have this description on their website. And why aren't they fixing these things? Chris Mellon said on Twitter that he doesn't think it's going that fast. But then he says, that's not important. Okay. He says the videos aren't important. And this is what happens, is if you start investigating these things and giving the explanation for things, invariably people will say, oh, well, that's not important. And then they will just drop it. Whereas, last year, this was the second coming of UFOlogy. These videos were the most amazing things ever. But now, they're not important. And that's just the way it goes.
I had to mute my mic for some of that because I was just laughing. Yeah, I mean, you make some great points. And I mean, for me, I see To the Stars Academy as just, you look at some of the people that are involved, that were involved with Bigelow, and obviously have had a definitely, they've been trying to steer the narrative and get government funding, contracts, yada yada, sell books, all this stuff, and so you see the same types of things that have been promoted, and to see the same players. So is this just another attempt for them to raise money and to obtain funding? I mean, that really has been a question that a lot of people have asked.
You see the same people on TV as well. You see Travis Taylor was on the Unidentified show, and now he's on the Skinwalker Ranch show, and Mike Barra from Ancient Aliens, and people. This is almost like this ecosystem, this entertainment ecosystem in the UFO community, where people are making shows and making money, and in some ways there's this profit motive. They need to keep it going. I don't want to accuse anybody of like lying because of it, but they certainly, people exaggerate things. They know that, they admit that the TV shows are exaggerated. But it kind of becomes a problem when the entertainment becomes more important than the facts and the investigation.
Yeah, and then that is a problem, definitely. We've seen that time and time again, where unfortunately people come in, and whether they're, just trying to make money, whether they're intentionally steering the narrative because people have, as we see with Skinwalker Ranch, some of the people that were involved in the intelligence community back in the Bigelow Nimitz days and different things. And so you wonder what some of those games are behind the scenes. But I think the new breed of TV shows is definitely interesting to see. And I keep hoping that there is going to be a really good show out there that it really talks about how exciting this is, the pursuit of truth, and talks about the history, and is a genuine show.
It would be good. I would watch a show like that.
Yeah. I would look forward to that and things. And we've got, definitely a lot to talk about in the last segment. So I look forward to that. We're going to delve into Skinwalker Ranch. And I am Erica Lukes. Thank you for tuning in always. And Andy, thank you for calling in. You are awesome. I look forward to talking to you again. We will be right back.
Stand by.
This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
With Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Vegas, baby!
Vegas' #1 source for talk and new music.
How cool is that?
1 million miles till midnight. A story of timelines, artificial worlds, simulated races, and the galactic imprint, and the destiny of a blue world called Earth. 1 million miles till midnight, written by Solaris Blue Raven, is a journey through the mind's eye, which allows the reader to surf a wave of technological and multidimensional intellect, revealing a bridge between conscious design and the truth. A multidimensional bleed-through awakens the world of artificial intelligence to set sail into the frontiers of a vast multiverse, morphing planets and terraforming ascended worlds beyond the linear programs of a fated race. 1 million miles till midnight will awaken, inspire, prepare and enlighten one to the many multidimensional states of consciousness and worlds we reside in. With every cell and atom, we are this truth and multiverse. 1 million miles till midnight. Written by Solaris Blue Raven. Available now at Amazon.com. Don't wait. Get your copy today.
there is a world outside that which we live in, a realm where fact and fiction collide. The Paradigm Matrix. The Paradigm Matrix. Hosted by Willie Miranda. Every Friday night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern.
The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us, even now in this very moment.
The 1-hour show that will surely leave you hanging on the edge of the rabbit hole. The Paradigm Matrix explores a universe of topics from UFOs, cryptozoology, conspiracies, as well as all things paranormal.
Enter a world of the twisted and deformed.
Friday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. The Paradigm Matrix. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network, where fact and fiction collide.
Alien Deceptions, a suspenseful sci-fi romance thriller by Tina Marie, featuring the tantalizing Erica Jones and the mysterious Russell Hamilton. An out-of-this-world book of fiction based on years of document facts and files the government does not want you to know about. At least, not yet. Alien Deceptions by Tina Marie. Available now at Amazon.com or get a signed copy at TinaMarieEntertainment.com. Get your copy now.
1, 2, 3, 4!
You are listening
to the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
I love the way it sounds. I love the music. Oh, I listen to.
The future of radio is here and now.
You're listening to UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts!
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes. Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to UFO Classified. I will tell you what, this is a lively show tonight. I'm sure people are going to be commenting on this for a long time to come, which is good because we should have a dialogue about all of these things. And there are lots of questions that we have, and they deserve to be answered. You know, we're being spoon-fed narratives and different things, and we should be digging into this and trying to find answers. And I love the fact that Mick West has been really looking into this and trying to empower people to ask questions. He founded metabunk.org, and that is a forum about the polite debunking of theories from 9/11 conspiracies to flat Earth. And he also has a new show, actually started in April of last year, Tales from the Rabbit Hole, in which he interviews conspiracy culture guests. And there was a recent show that he did, and I hope towards the end we have time to talk about that, where he interviewed Stephen Hassan, who is an expert on cults and a former high-ranking member of the Unification Church, a.k.a. the Moonies, who's been helping people kind of deprogram from the cult-like mentalities and things. And I'm sure that was absolutely fascinating. So I hope we get a chance to talk about that. But when we left off, we were talking about some of the TV shows that are taking place now, and there is a show out about Skinwalker Ranch, and I want to just say that there are people involved in this that I really like, and I have nothing but the love for them, but there are questions about the show that have come up, and people are you know, I mean, it is a controversial show. There's no doubt about it. And given some of the research that I have done, a lot of research about the ranch and the basin, I've been doing this for a long, long time, and I probably have more reports and information in my archive than most people on the planet, thanks to Chris Marks and thanks to other people that have donated these things to me. It is very interesting to see where people like Chris and his colleagues who worked for Bass are coming from. They had the MRIs, they were exposed to radiation potentially, and perhaps non-lethal weapons testing at the ranch, and so all sorts of things are taking place. But Mick, I mean, you've been in there and you've been commenting on the show, and you probably haven't had a lot of fans about that. But I mean, go ahead.
I didn't know very much about Skinwalker Ranch before this show, actually, and I hadn't really read very much about it. I think my understanding of it was a place where there were a lot of cattle mutilations and some UFO encounters. And I actually realized that Joe Rogan had mentioned it once to me as being a turning point for him in his kind of journey out of the rabbit hole. Because when he went there to investigate it, and he talked to various people, he talked to someone who told him the story of the transdimensional werewolf or giant wolf that came in and was bulletproof and disappeared in a portal. And he thought that just sounded like the stupidest story ever, and that kind of turned him off to the whole thing. So that was my kind of first experience of Skinwalker Ranch. And then you got this show, and I must admit, I was disappointed that there wasn't more interesting stuff in the show. The episodes, they pack in a lot of talking, but there isn't very much in terms of science. Like people standing around with meters, that could be pretty much anything, and could in fact be just things like their wireless microphones. There's the one meter that they use is this thing called the Trifield meter. I have one of them myself, and I've been playing with it, trying to see what types of readings are like the readings that they have. And you can get it from just your phone, or certainly you can get it from something like a wireless mic pack. And they actually all had wireless mic packs that were working because they actually had audio whilst they were giving these readings, and they were pointing them in all different directions. And these meters aren't particularly directional. In the first episode, they're pointing the meters and saying, "Oh, it's coming from over here." But then I think in episode 3, they're sticking the meters in coffee cans and pointing them up in the air because the meters are suddenly not directional. So I think they were perhaps expecting more fun things to happen when they all went there and set up camp and started investigating. And I think they kind of had to make a show from less interesting stuff than they thought that they would find. But maybe there's a couple of episodes left, I believe. So maybe they'll finish with a bang.
Well, it is interesting because, like I said, it's you get on social media and you just see this. I mean, there's a lot of people that either love it or they hate it, and there's not a lot of in between in that regard. I will say that I do think there are high levels of radiation on the ranch. I hopefully some point in time I'll be able to talk about that, but it's been an experience for me, and it was interesting because Chris Marks, again, my husband, worked with Bigelow, and I've interviewed several people over the last few years that have said that Bigelow strictly forbade his top people from going to the ranch because they would get cancer. And his top people did not go to the ranch. And so I find that fascinating. But they sent in people that were, serving our country and things and subjecting them to who knows what. And they had MRIs and they were taking urine samples and some very peculiar things. So what was going on? I also think that this could be an area where it would be a prime place to test something. Utah is one of those places where we have a lot of tests that go on. You look at Dugway, you look at the sheep incident back in the late 60s, and you could potentially get away with a lot in the name of military testing here. So.
There's something about that, though. If you look at Skinwalker Ranch on the map, if you go into Google Earth or something, it isn't really in the middle of nowhere. There's a town just 8 miles away, and it's surrounded by farms and oil rigs and things. It's not like it's this top secret place where there's privacy. Like if they wanted to test something secretly? Why didn't they do it at Area 51 or some kind of military base?
And that's a great point. I think a lot of the land abuts a Native American reservation, and as we've seen, when the military is involved and there's a Native American reservation, sometimes things happen. And there have been instances where people have unfortunately seen the blowback of military testing and things, and I also think there's a lot of questions that I have with regard to this. And you look at the OSAP contract and the fact that many people have gone on record stating that was, a lot of the thrust of that was at Skinwalker Ranch. And I've also spent some time, and I'll have to have a conversation with you sometime when you have time, and I can fill you in on all of this. But there are people in the surrounding properties that were getting paid by Bigelow for certain things, and then you also have people that were experiencing things from 96, 97 on, where they were experiencing UFO or strange sightings, and they, eventually suffered health effects because of this. Is it correlated? I don't know, but there are some interesting threads to follow there, and I think this deserves to be looked into, especially when you've got health concerns for people. So I don't know, but it is interesting, and I'd appreciate your points. And why wouldn't they go out in the middle of nowhere to test? I don't know, but maybe sometimes testing on human subjects might be the way to go, especially if you've got people like Chris, who is in the military and he is trained to respond a certain way, and they're testing things that they can deploy in the field. You never know. It's just something to think about. But we've got Bruce Cornett on the phone, and I want to just take his call really quickly, and then we'll get back to you. And thank you so much for this. I've never had this many callers. It's quite exciting. So Bruce, what is your question for Mick? And Bruce was involved in Nimitz.
Hi, Mick. I saw that show this last Tuesday, and as a driller, as a geologist, I was shocked by the level of incompetence of the people there. They didn't seem to have a qualified geologist to understand what was going on. That drill bit was meant for soft, unconsolidated rock, not for hard, indurated rock. When they got down to 17 feet, they drilled into hard, indurated siltstone. And then suddenly the whole picture of the GPR stood out. What they were measuring or reflecting was the boundary between sediment that was deposited by rivers on top of bedrock that was underneath. So all they got was an echo reflection back off of the position of bedrock. It wasn't a structure underneath other than hard rock, and it wasn't a UFO. And they just had no clue.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I've seen people post similar, I don't know what they're called, echograms or whatever they are, of just various ordinary bits of land in other places that look basically the same. You get these kind of curved shapes just kind of occurring naturally when you do that type of ground-penetrating radar.
Yeah, and one of those pictures they showed was a stylized version of the cross-section, and they showed a lenticular saucer embedded in the rock, and that was so deceptive.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of obviously things like that. Well, they're trying to make things interesting. I think is the problem with the show is that a lot of it is over sensationalizing things, and they spend a lot of money on something like getting a ground penetrating radar crew in, or getting someone in to fly rockets up, or whatever they're doing, and whatever happens, they're going to make some TV out of it, because it's that's what the show's about, is entertaining people. And I think unfortunately they let the science slide a little bit there. You got to ask, why is it so hard to figure these things out? Why, when they see UFOs in the sky, why is nobody sporting a pair of binoculars? It just seems so ridiculous that they haven't done these very basic things, and having a proper geologist in there to answer their questions would have been a good thing.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce. Thank you so much for calling in. I always appreciate your support in chat and everything. And Bruce has been on my show before, so you can listen to my show with Bruce Cornett. He actually worked for Bigelow back before the Bass days, so that is interesting and great comments. So, yeah, Mick, this show seems to be, like I said, it's very controversial, and there are some things taking place. And I mean, I have interviewed people for a long, long time, and I have no doubt that there is something going on in this area in the Uinta Basin. I interviewed, and I've got this on video, I did a 2-day interview with a family, 3 generations of people who've been experiencing things in the basin. The grandmother who I interviewed, who was in her late 80s at the time, had a moment in time where she was with her family. They were rock hounding. She wandered away for a bit, and then they couldn't find her. And when she returned, she was disoriented and had, by her doctor's accounts, radiation burns on her. And so it's, you look at all of these things and you just say, what's going on? Is there something going on? But it definitely is curious. And, could the ranch just be used as a cover story for some sort of testing? And I want to get your opinion, because we know on the new series that people have been injured. Tom Winterton was very severely injured at the ranch, and I know that I absolutely know that is true. He was injured. But what are your thoughts on that?
This was the guy who had the bump on the head?
Yes.
The scalp separating from the skull. I mean, it sounds a bit unserious if I just say bump on the head, but it was pretty serious, yeah. But, is there actually evidence that ties that to the ranch, though? Was he injured by something actually happening? Like, they did talk about on the show, like it was a beam of directed energy, like going through his skull, but could it also just be some kind of condition that causes his scalp to separate from his skull? They're presented as a medical mystery, but we don't really get to hear from his doctors. We get to hear from the guy on the show who gives his medical opinion. And like the thing with the radiation burns, like if people are getting radiation burns just from stuff that's just out there on the ranch, isn't that something that the authorities should be notified about? Why isn't there, like, I don't know, whoever it would be, the OSH or whatever, OSHA, shouldn't there be a big cleanup crew going in there? If there is radiation, does this radiation just crop up and then go away? Is that what happens?
And that's a great point, and that's the one great thing about the show that I've been excited they're talking about the radiation, because that's been something that has been suspected for a long time, and you're right, and I've raised this issue before. If that is the case and people are being injured and there is radiation, it's not confined to a specific area. This would be affecting a lot of different people in the area, and so it raises a lot of questions. So I hope we'll look to the people involved now, and now that they are saying that radiation is taking place and it's dangerous levels for people, how are they going to respond to that? What are they going to do to keep the people on the ranch safe, and to alert the community about the potential radiation that they might be exposed to? And so we will see what happens there. But I worry about that community, and for me, and I want to just say this. I'm just going to be a little spicy tonight, but when I look at the movie that Jeremy Corbell did, and I look at the fact that he's bringing on a woman and her son, and he is basically leading this woman to believe that her son came down with MS after a UFO sighting, and then it's due to UFOs. And in my opinion, I think that is grossly negligent, and I think that he should be called on the carpet for that. How in the world can you do that and put that thought into somebody's mind. That's not the first place you look. And I mean, this woman was in tears. And I just, for me, I don't know. I mean, I'm not quite sure the mentality or the logic of somebody that would do that. I mean, her son has suffered some serious health effects. Why is that? And, why are we so apt to jump on the UFO bandwagon when there might be something that is causing people to get sick in the area?
Yeah, I don't know about that case, but I think, with the people living around there, I think something I've seen over and over in the people I've talked to in various fields is that they feel like there's something behind their illness and they want to find out what it is. But I think a lot of the time it is just people getting older. Like, I have these aches and pains and I have these health problems. I have vision and my hair's going away and things like that just because I'm getting older. But a lot of people like to try to find some other reason for their health problems. And it doesn't mean those health problems are not real. People have very real health issues, but perhaps the reason for them is a little bit less interesting than they suspected.
Yeah, and I completely appreciate that. I have several friends who actually work in the healthcare system, and they work in the Uinta Basin, and there are some very peculiar things that are going on there. There are a higher number of stillbirths, higher rates of cancer, all sorts of medical things that are going on, and whether that's a result of drilling and some of the things that are taking place in the environment, that is something. But there definitely is something going on there, and so it definitely, to me, it's just I don't know. I mean, it's going down that rabbit hole. You got to pull me back out because we've only got 4 minutes left for the show.
Yeah, well, it is a geologically interesting area, and it could be that there's something unique in that area. I mean, it is one of the only two sources in the United States of a certain type of solid hydrocarbon. I can't remember what it's called, but it's only found in these places. So maybe that is something that's contaminating the groundwater or something like that, or getting in the air. So it is possible that there's something unique about the location. But these are things that should be able to be discovered. And I'm not sure that the show is doing a particularly good job at figuring things out.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I knew this was going to be an amazing interview, and like I said, there's going to be a lot to talk about. I'm sure people will have much to say, but you have stated multiple times that you are not trying to be disrespectful. You're trying to pose questions to make people think, to make people look at logic, and then find answers. And I really feel that that's critical. And so thank you for all that you're doing. And it's refreshing. So, and I didn't even get to ask you about Stephen Hassan, but people can find your interview with regards to that, Tales from the Rabbit Hole, and that's on YouTube, and you interview conspiracy culture guests. And where else can people find you again? Because you've got a couple different websites. We've actually got more than that, where people can find your articles.
Yeah. Tales from the Rabbit Hole is a podcast as well, so you can get it on Apple Podcasts and everywhere you can get podcasts. And I got my old site, which is the Contrail Science website. So if you're interested in chemtrails, that's a good place to look at for a good overview. But Metabunk is where I do most of my writing on various different topics, and write a lot about contrails and chemtrails on that as well, but also cover stuff like the 9/11 conspiracy theories, even flat Earth stuff, all kinds of different things. Coronavirus nowadays, there's quite a lot of coronavirus conspiracy theories, obviously. And I'm quite active on Twitter, so if someone wants to just drop me a message, my DMs are currently open on Twitter if people want to say hello, or you can just email me, mick@mickwest.com. I'm always happy to talk to people.
And thank you. You were so quick to respond to me. And like I said, I noticed some of your dialogue in some of these social media pages, and I just thought it was interesting. It was interesting to see what you were saying, and then also people that were responding to you. And I appreciate you coming on the show. It's been a riot, and I think it'll probably take me a couple of days to recover.
Well, thank you for having me. And it's, yeah, I just wanted to say again, I do understand people being upset at me, debunking things which they see as being important things, but try to take things in isolation. If I'm debunking one video, it's just that one video. It doesn't mean I'm debunking everything.
And that is, I appreciate that again. And so, do you honestly, because we've got 2 minutes before show close, do you believe, or do you feel that there is something out there that deserves to be studied that is truly anomalous?
I think there's something out there, but probably way, way, way out there, like in another solar system, or perhaps even another galaxy. I haven't personally seen good evidence of anomalous things here, and I know a lot of people have. So, you've seen things that I haven't, and maybe there's something there, and I just haven't seen it yet. But with the evidence that I have to go by, unfortunately, my view of the world is perhaps a little less interesting than other people's views of the world.
I don't think so. I think your view of the world is needed, and it's good. It gives us a balance, and I appreciate that. And I want to thank again, Bruce for calling in, Andy for calling in, Susan. I appreciate your comments in the chat room tonight. And this has been a great show. I love the fact that Chris has been doing interviews in Germany and Austria, and so we're getting the word out. And a lot of international attention is taking place, and that's good. We need to have a dialogue about this, and UFO Classified provides a respectful way to do that and disagree and move forward. So thank you all so much for your support and your love. Thank you, Mick, for being on tonight. It was this will be a show that I will have to listen to time and time again to take in everything that you said. So thank you. So absolutely. Thank you so much, you guys. Be safe. Stick around for a great night on KCOR, and I will catch you next week with Keith Basterfield.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at UFOclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from